everyone to an advanced building tutorial. If you are struggling to build better, this may be the video for you. In case you haven't seen this one, this is my mega tutorial in which we've basically touched upon a lot of things. However, I didn't really go super mega crazy in detail with the building, especially when it comes to advanced building tips and tricks. Today we are building a dome, we are building some cool things that you can utilize to build quicker and more efficient, and I'm going to show you a couple of little tricks that you can utilize in order to get better at building just in general. So with all the experience from Planet Games, I'll give you a bit of a more advanced insight to the game. In case you haven't had the chance to get into the basics of building, make sure to do so before we jump into it. You can do this virtually with this entire build over here, which we've been doing in a tutorial, but now we're going to focus on a bit of a different area of the park. Actually, we're going to use that area here in the back because it does provide us with a nice little sunlight over here, and we're going to utilize all that. So first things first, I'm going to go to the freelock camera. I always recommend this for building, and what we're doing for the beginning is we're basically just giving us a flat ground to start building with. I highly recommend this. It may seem like nothing, but make sure to get rid of all kind of stuff in the beginning, and make sure that you're going to utilize a very contrasty ground. You could either go for like sand, or you go with lawn, which is good because it's short. You can also go with cliff or whatever. It doesn't matter how, as long as it is just flat, you know, because with long grass and stuff, you've got 3D grass and so on, which, you know, gets into the way of building just in general. So we're starting with the building over here, and I'll give you a bit of an idea how to utilize the most efficient things. The first thing we're going to start with is actually rotational buildings, or like perfectly circular stuff. I've seen people doing that with it's kind of a technique that does work, but you know, I first of all show you how usually people do kind of make this. Now, if you go in and we are to, let's say we are building something. Let's just go something with off-grid. Usually people use that and just build something like this, for example, and then you start kind of rotating things and just kind of, you know, pushing them into, whoops, use that one again. Hold on, we're just going to do that again. That was my bad. Can I just not that? There you have the wall. And then we're just going to copy that and create like a bit of a tilt here. And we're going to do this again and tilt another tilt. There we have it. So that's that, and then we create like a group out of that, you know, confirm and make a group. And then as we have it, we can edit the group, and then I've seen a lot of people using this now, copy this over and make sure that you have the angle snap activated, and then you're gonna bring this over to the other side. And what happens now is you select everything, confirm that, and if you now hit advanced copy, you'll see that you just have the exact middle point around which you can rotate your stuff. You know, that actually does work. As you can see, it does just work pretty fine. You know, just gonna do it a little bit like that, and you got your rotational build. However, what you will spot is that certain distances between here and here and here, they are not perfect. The reason for that is relatively simple. Even though it seems like the game draws the perfect kind of middle ground between these two, just if we confirm that, it looks like as if it is the exact ground, but it's not. The reason for that is a little bit harder to explain. So in this game, and this is also how it works in Planet Games, which is why we have the advantage of 8 years of experience. Now, if we have the grid, this grid is perfectly aligned. That is the absolute perfect alignment, and this is exactly what we need to make use of. So what you can do instead of this technique is you can basically use in-game pieces, also make sure that the grid size is reduced, and then actually stick it to 2 meters. I'll show you why. And this one now is in 2 meters. What we want to achieve is we want to have a perfect middle point, and in order to have the perfect middle point, we could do several things, you know, but the easiest way to do that is just create like for example, this one is fine. So that structure over here, you could even just use that, and copy that one more time to just have the absolute middle point. There you have it. So now this structure created a perfect middle point in the joint of all the pieces. That center point, this is what we want to use as a pivot point for our rotational buildings. Now, in order to achieve this, you also want to use another grid wall. You can use this wall, but it's very important that you stick this always onto exactly this this grid over here. You have to always have this middle line as a center point. Now, why do we want to use this one, this wonderful grid piece over here? I'm going to show you. So now it's important you go and utilize a non-grid piece. So if we go for walls, for example, just scroll through here and let's use that non-grid straight wall chucker. Now, if we use that one, before we put it down, make sure to use align to surface and also position snap. Because what happens now, you can see now if I move over, you can see my computer wants to, or my cursor wants to put it in the middle. Now you can see, I'm not going to move my cursor anymore. You can see that this finally has the exact middle point. It now is perfectly aligned at the middle point of the wall. If you now hit the advanced move tool, in my case it's X, you have the gizmo. And the perfect alignment stays because this is the origin of the piece. So we have this now, as you can see, perfectly aligned to the left and to the right. There is absolutely zero tolerance if you don't use the position snap. And now what happens, we can move that outwards and just keep building from this piece. So when we now copy this from the origin, just going to do that again, and we're going to rotate this slightly. Actually, you know what? Okay, well, it doesn't matter. So I'm just going to rotate a little bit less, like this, and just bring it up and bring it like so. You know, we are not going to do the full thing. It doesn't matter. You get the idea, you know. Now we have this. And now what you're going to do, I'm going to just get rid of this one. What you want to do now is select everything. And then you're going to duplicate this with the grid. Now it's very important that you align this in the center. And you can see it creates the center. You could now go in and delete the upper level, but it doesn't really matter. And what I also like to do is just do that one more time. Whoops, I should have just selected everything. There we have it, confirm. Do it one more time and then align it this way. Now you have all four sides, as you can see, and this creates an even, oops, I just gotta use that and move it away. This is out of sight. So if you have this, you can see now that this is the absolute center in here. Now what we want to do, we are going to edit this group, select everything, and important now, hold down Control and just deselect the center, confirm. Now you only have the outer pieces, and if you now hit Control X, in my case, or whatever your advanced move toggle is, it creates again this center point. But that one now is in the dead center of the pieces. If we were to rotate this now, I'm just going to do this real quick. I'm just going to hit the angle snap for a second so you can see that is really perfectly aligned. So hold on one more time. Just creates a perfect circle. We're going to select everything. Again, deselect the center, confirm. Now what we want to do, oops, I just hit that undo button. That is something I shouldn't do. Now deselect that. And now if we confirm and do the same rotation, you will not see a difference because we still have the angle snap activated. Just hit shift or deselect it manually. And now if we move that in the center, now the problem obviously is we haven't been working too, precise. In this case, it doesn't really matter, but we can now just move that absolutely in the center. Let's say like this. And just for the sake of showcase, you can now tell that this is always the perfect same distance. What you could do now, obviously, because that doesn't fit, a simple thing to just fix that issue is just simply confirm. And now you could, and this is relatively simple, you could now scale this up. And the distance in between becomes obviously bigger. And then you would need to move something in between, or you scale it all the way down and bring the other ones in. However, there is a way to make this even better. Now I'm just going to go and revert all of these things back to exactly this situation. What you could do now is you just go in and just deselect the middle, confirm, hit Control again from the center, and now make sure that angle snap is actually activated. And then just rotate one step. There you have it. Because now you would be able to select all the pieces to create the middle ground between the two. Care of that little gap over here. So there are many ways as to do this, but first of all we're going to edit the group again. So what you could do is you could copy this piece, and then obviously it's a little bit problematic because you can see it is not really nicely aligning. Whatever, you could also just do the following. Just select the middle pieces again. It's a bit of a tedious process, to be honest. So just try to only select the middle ones, deselect that one, fine, deselect the middle one, confirm, and then you want to rotate that again into the other direction. Make sure you have angle snap activated. Don't you worry about these other ones. We're going to get rid of them sooner than later. But what you could do now is, that's a very simple technique, basically. So you want to use the always single piece and move it over here a little bit. All of these need to be moved over. And the same goes on the other side. It's rather simple to be done, to be honest. So just move them all over. It also doesn't matter. They don't need to be perfectly aligned. However, if you move that one over now, you need to just go until you see where the kind of moment of connection is. So that is basically over here. So just make sure that you go and have a nice connection to the top. So you can see basically, actually this is already pretty much where it is. Awesome. So do the same over here. Just move over. This one goes even a little further, which just makes sense, you know, just touch that there. And you can see, you can also push that even further. And you need to watch exactly for this moment over here, where the piece goes into the other one, you know, that's exactly the edge we are looking for. Just move that back, it doesn't matter. We just need that one. And so do the same with the lowest one as well. Just move that all the way over so we have a bit of an idea. So there you have it. There's that little overlap. Okay, perfect. So as we've created this is actually where we would need to go with our circular connection later on. And then what we want to do is again hit Ctrl X to duplicate this piece from its origin, and you do the same on the other side, you know, just move it over so we have the exact overlap point, which is that one, and then we do the same to the ground. Oops, I should have copied that one, so just do that here. This one's actually a little further in, so just move that one a bit more so we can actually see where the overlap is. So there we have it. Okay, now we're gonna push this further back again so that it doesn't annoy. Let's grip that one and put it further in, and we're going to copy that one over again. Look for the overlap point. There we have it. There's the one you want to watch for. You could also change the color to have it more obvious, but that's just for, you know, for the sake of making it nice looking. So now you can actually get rid of these pieces. You don't need them anymore. It's basically just for the beginning. Now you can see there's a bit of overlap in the textures. You could easily get rid of it by just actually selecting them all and just move them a tiny fraction forward and back. So just do it very carefully. So you basically create the almost seamless connection again. There we have it. So that's perfect. Now you don't have the texture fighting. Just as an explanation, in this game, the texture works as on a 2D plane. And there's exactly one coordinate where they can overlap, which is the exact origin point. So if you kind of, you know, make this from the origin, obviously, as we are on this axis over here, on the exact same pattern, the overlap will start to fight which texture to show first. And if you have similar textures, it kind of results in this, you know, wobble effect, kind of, I don't know. And if you have different ones, it would actually create a bit of a bleeding, you know, one texture bleeding into the other. As soon as you have moved it forth and back, it'll basically stop doing that, because realistically, there is no way that you find the exact position again, because you have to imagine they are tiny, tiny, tiny millimeters. But yeah, that's the way to fix it. Now, if you want to make that even more seamless and nice, you can see on both sides, we have like this tiny little step in here. On both sides. You can even fix that by just grabbing your piece, and now angle snap has to be deactivated, and then you can just rotate this. Make sure it has been beforehand, you have actually copied that one from its origin again. And the same goes with this piece, and so just again rotate this a little so we create this nice, and then we can do the same over here. Just grip it and do it that way, and do the same on the other side as well. You know, something like this. And then we, in order to make this even nicer to the outside, you could also do the bottom part, but you know, I'll leave that as this because you have seen how that works. So what you could do now is delete the other side completely. We don't need that anymore. Confirm, just copy that around to have a new base, so to say. And now what we are going to do is, again, as always, just deselect that one. Or actually, you know what, to make it very precise, we're just gonna do one more copy paste like this, and now select everything. Also, haven't I moved this over just for the sake of being not in the way? Just go away. Okay, edit. Now Select them all, deselect the middle, confirm, and now if we have done our job correctly and we have angle snap turned on, we should be able to have a seamless connection to the outside. And as you can see, this is perfect. Look at this. Yeah, it just creates that very nice seamless connection now between the pieces, and you can utilize the effect. Now, one thing that is pretty awesome in this game is obviously that we have the ability to scale. So if you want to make nice kind of rings that are smaller, you can then obviously scale this all inwards, and you will see as long as the piece itself can be scaled, it'll result in a super seamless scaling of all these things. So if we scale it all the way up, you can see at some point they will start moving away from each other as like in a very cool effect, I must say. But this is because you can scale relatively, but you can't scale more than what the piece itself could also scale. But you can make use of this. Now, if you want to make, for example, a way more, let's say, nice and clean radius in here, you could just go like this, and then if you put it down like this, you could then go in and fill these gaps with the same technique we've done. And if you scale it or shrink it down again, you will kind of result in a bit of a different shape, obviously. So there are more ways, obviously, to make it even more round. I'm going to show you one more little trick in order to achieve an even more round circle, because this one over here is limited, unfortunately, to the 15 degrees. So if you want, I mean, you can create some really nice circles with this. But if you want to have even more granular and even more nice patterns, you can obviously just use this pre-pattern we have created. Just like, let's redo all of these things. Oh, you know what? Actually, let's quickly... it doesn't even matter. We could, you know, we could just do it this way. And then I'm going to show you by just basically copying that thing over. I'm going to have this for later. But if we go and edit this group again, we could obviously go in and utilize this piece over here as reference. And now what you could do, and as I can still scale that somewhat smaller, you could then go in and use the exact middle ground. And let me show you again how to do that. So we basically grab a piece, and we must make sure that we have the position snap enabled, and obviously also the align to surface. What we're going to do then is we're going to search for the middle ground on this piece over here, which, why does it not, position snap, there we have it. So now we have the position snap enabled again, move this all the way out, and now what's important is that you actually bring this all the way to the smallest size. And now what we could do, we just utilize this part what we have over here. And so this is a bit of a confusing thing, but what you could do is you go into scenery, and I'm not sure if we find something round. We need some non-grid options. Let's have a look. Yeah, there are some cool round pieces we could utilize. I think this one is fine. And let's say how big we can scale that. Yeah, that should do the job for now. And we're going to rotate this way. And now you push that in. And what we're going to do is you're going to make sure that you find the edges over here. To be completely honest, though, I think this is by way too... Yeah, that's way too crazy of it. That will look very odd indeed. So, yeah, it's not the best piece to be doing this. We need some ridiculously bigger stuff. I don't know if the fountains also have like a huge footprint. Something really big and round. Let's have a look if we can scale that one up. Yeah, that might actually be better. Oh, that one is even bigger. Awesome. So we could use that one instead. I think this should give us a bit more of a subtle curve. I mean, still not the most subtle curve, because that one will result in a circle of that size. So yeah, it just could help you to get a bit of an idea to where to put them. But we'll make this ourselves now by just using exactly this step more in the middle. So we're going to do it this way. And then we're going to copy this over, and we're going to bring this in and try to make sure that we have something in the mix of it. So let's say not like 15 degrees, but something in the mix. So we have it like this. But the advantage of the piece in the middle is that this is our reference point. So what we're going to do is we just rotate the piece as long as possible that we are matching the two sides. Yes, we do. Okay, so awesome. That is good. We have this little overlap over here. We shouldn't care too much about this. Now we're just going to move this one over and see that we can have both things aligned properly. Okay, so this is not exactly the angle. Actually, it's pretty much way too much. So let's bring that back down. Yeah, somewhat like that is okay. So we should have the other overlap here too. Okay, now we could do several things. We could now bring this one to the front. and have these overlaps on the sides. But actually I like this overlap in the middle. I think that's fine. And what you can then do is you can use these pieces again and make sure that you copy them from over here and then just get a very slight incline. But first of all, before we do this, we should get rid of all the pieces behind. So this is just for a showcase, okay? You can do this all way more nice looking and way more clean, but I'm just going to do this for the showcase. So I'm going to confirm that one, bring it up, and then from over here, again, it's super important that you're very careful, and we are just going to push this all the way up here. Just get a bit more. Oh god, the sunlight. The sunlight is doing weird things. Okay, so there you go. Another one. Just give that even more of a tilt. And the technique to make the sides better is basically the same. I mean, we did work now with the seamless connection, but it should become more narrow to the top, because when it's not getting more narrow to the top, while rotating this piece, it's becoming a bit of a mixed shape here on the sides, basically intersecting to each other. So what you would need to do later on is to basically bring these ones over and tilt them slightly towards the top. I'm just going to show you with this piece. So both of them must be tilted a little bit like that. You'll see the effect when I copy them around. So let's basically just get rid of all these pieces and then just do, again, the copy technique. And there we have it. There we have it. And oops. Yeah, and there we have it. Okay, so now select all of these, get rid of the center. And, you know, by now you should have understood how that works. But now, as you can tell, I'm just gonna do the other circle real quick so you have a comparison between the two. Whoops, there you go, confirm. And just gonna create this real quick. You can already tell the difference. I mean, it's not as clean though, but you'll see this when I move this closer. So let's just move it over. So you can really nicely, also with the sunlight, you can really see how seamless this circle is and how more of a polygon step you can see in that one. Even though this right one looks cleaner because I did my job a bit better, if you would make this one more clean by making sure that you do avoid these middle kind of things and put like smaller pieces in the middle to really make this nice, you'll achieve a super nice looking dome that is a lot more seamless than the one I've created over here. But this way you produce proper nice looking circles. This is a very important thing to do. Now, another thing I would highly recommend is make use of the grid in more ways possible. So in this game, unfortunately, there is no mirroring option that we have, for example, in Planet Coaster, which comes in super handy. Just to show you, we're going to utilize again another brick block over here. Let's use that one. So if you build something on one side, and it just doesn't really matter what it is, just going to slap some props on here, just to make sure that we have a bit of an idea what I'm talking about. So we're just gonna make like a wooden wall design here with this palette kind of thing, you know, and then we're gonna put whatever it is in here. What's that actually? That's a gutter. Is that a guttering? Yeah, it's a gutter. So let's put the gutter on top. So here, for example, it's a bit of a nice one, and then we obviously make the gutter go down like so, all the way down. And then we could also, I don't know, what do we have over here? Yeah, that's a nice wall pattern. Let's see if we can bring this all to this one here. You know, and you're like, I don't want to do this all the time again, and whatever. So it's actually nasty if you have to design all these things. You could now go in and say, you know what, I'm just going to use concrete here. And then I'm going to put this one as a, oops. Let's see if I can do this actually. Yeah, that should be nice. Rotate this around. Looks like a nice little footer kind of thing. So we're going to push this in as like a foundation piece. Bring it all the way down. That looks good to me. So, and now because, you know, you have this brick piece, that is fantastic. But I would always recommend, if you're happy with this creation, as they have done a great job in giving us the same pieces, here's my little trick I would now do. So if you have put this all on the grid, make sure that you're using this thing and push the grid wall a little bit further away. That's that. And now you've seen this is the straight wall brick. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to say brick again, look for the same walls. It's a straight wall brick, and then scroll all the way down. We will have some there, you can see them. These are the non-grid straight wall brick. This is the exact same wall, but just like, wait, hold on, it's not the exact same. This is the exact same. And now you want to say position snap and align to surface on. And okay, this time it's rotated. Can we have it on top, on the right? Hello? Hello? Okay, well, whatever. Just use angle snap to bring it all to the perfect rotation. Bring it all the way down so it's the exact same angle. And what you want to do now, push it back onto your build. So just where you had it. So like over here. So now you have got the same wall as you did before, but there is a huge advantage in this. You can use the whole thing and scale it up and down as you wish, okay? Again, same philosophy. You can only scale as much as the pieces themselves allow you. So you go bigger, goes out of the way, go smaller. So there is a range in where you can have a nice relative scaling. So most of the times in this game, unfortunately, 4x4 meters is a tad bit too big. So if you want to go a bit more realistically sized, you can do this and then go on. But what you will notice is that the gizmo down here is slightly off. So I'm just going to show you something. Imagine you want to now build this and, you know, create like a larger wall. Well, you can see it becomes super tedious. And it also doesn't matter if you change to, for example, this is now the local axis, but if you go to the global axis, in my case, this now works. I'm going to explain in a second why that works, but it's not going to always work. So if you go back to the local axis, it's gonna create this odd little off angle and will make your job a little bit more tedious to put them down. However, let's scale that back. This is our wall in the background, and if we now completely nicely copy this, you will be seeing that as we have a grid piece involved in the wall, we can now move it on the grid, and in doing so, you create the perfect alignment of the walls. So you can just super quickly build out your building if you want to. And now if you're done with this, you know, just go to the center, select all the walls, make them go, and now you've got all the walls built. And see what's happening now. Select the whole thing and scale it so much down as you wish. And here you have it. So this way, it's way simpler. Make sure that you really use the power of the grid pieces. Even though you want to get smaller, it doesn't matter. You can use that. Now, onto the topic of the grid. This is also a very important thing to notice. Now, the game has a certain logic, and on these island maps, it's a little bit harder to explain because we don't have the actual borders of the map. But just imagine that the borders of the map are always a rectangle. Now, if you put down a piece, it will always be at the beginning aligned to this very angle. So if we go, for example, to the floor pieces, the flattening foundations, and you're going to use this one is always going to be oriented to the exact angle of the map itself. So I'm just going to rotate this. Now is the default orientation of the map. Okay, I didn't know that this is the case, but let me tell you it is. Now, whenever you place this down, this is exactly the so-called global angle or the global orientation. Now, if we place this down, just to show you, bam, then you can also put a couple of pieces on, let's say a door, for example. However, as soon as you basically rotate this, it doesn't even matter how much, like this, for example, it's not on the angle anymore. So if I'm going to use the gizmo, you will see that the gizmo of this piece is now aligned to the rotation of the piece. If I switch to the global gizmo, it's gonna be back with its orientation to our showcase grid over here. So as I said, the grid you put down originally has always the global axis. So if you want to maintain this angle for all stuff you move around, make sure to never ever rotate the building piece you put down. So for example, if we were to go down with the scenery and you were like to put a wall down, let's like this, and you're like, oh wait, but I want to build this wall over here, you would rotate this, right? Okay, fine. But now you destroyed it because the global angle is gone, and the problem will be that you now always have to wiggle around with the gizmo. It is easier to just build your building in the original orientation. In any case, the most simple thing I would recommend is use yourself the, I don't know, it doesn't really matter, but you can use the flattening grounds over here and then build yourself somewhat like, where's the space to showcase? Here's nice. Okay, so just use this thing and then just build yourself kind of your building place. Okay, so this could become your building place for your map. It doesn't even matter what exactly it is, but you can just copy it over and then on here you're willing to build. So you always know what the global orientation is looking like. You always have the perfectly flattened ground and you can just lock this thing, you know, never build on it. It doesn't matter. But what you want to do then is if there's a new building to be built, And let's say you want to start again. Let's say this time around we want to start with some roof pieces. So let's say this tent kit over here is nice. It'll always tell you to add to building. We don't want that. We want to just have the building as reference. And if you want to avoid this, just press on your keyboard the advanced move key. For example, R or X or whatever this button is for you. Once you've done that, place down the building, because now the building is built, but it is its own building and you're not constantly building in the other one. You could obviously switch groups, but you know, it doesn't matter. You just stay to the building you have over here, and then once you're in, there's no problem with building around. Now, another little trick, you know, is, and it's, to be honest, we don't have, as I said, we don't have mirroring in the game, and this is a bit of a tricky thing to do, but you can also make use of, and this is also pretty new to this game, we have diagonal walls in some sets. So, for example, in here, we got a diagonal wall, which is pretty damn cool, because you can now also do the same we've done with this thing, also on a diagonal wall. What you can do with this is a bit of a sneaky thing to do, but you can see this diagonal wall has also the thing that it is on both sides of the diagonal. As you can, if we were to draw a perfect middle line between the grids, you can see it's not on the grid middle line, it is basically to the left and to the right of the middle line. Just keep that in mind, this is important for that little bit I'm going to show you. So if you confirm that and you copy this around, you'll see that now you would have this edge cut off. This is exactly what I said, because it's not perfect. But in order to make more or less like mirrored pieces, this is the way how you can, well, get to it with a combination of these pieces and the in-game pieces of the normal orientation. So let's go back to the walls and go back to this set. And now we take the bamboo wall and put it all to both sides. Now, the thing is, we have created this corner over here, and if we were to just, oops, give me that one, copy this around again, we have a kind of roundish corner over here. You could also use like a round piece, but the advantage of this technique is a bit of a hard one to explain. You want to have this shape, because this shape goes to both sides. So if you want to build now something that has to be mirrored, you can build this on both of these sides. Let me quickly tell you what I mean by that. So we are going to use, let's say metal. It doesn't even matter, but I wanna just showcase. So let's put we're gonna build whatever we wanted on this side of the things. Okay. So just gonna use this to create a nice looking thing that is just, I don't know. I just wanna build something that is a bit off and not the perfect angle, because this way it at least shows a little bit how we could approach that. So here we have it, and we just move that one over too. So that is pretty nice indeed. Okay, so usually you want to have this copied or mirrored to the other side, which is not possible in this game. So as I'm just going to show you, this is the one, and now we're going to move this over, but as we were to flip it, you can see we are getting into some issues. Okay, now we could just try to make it a bit more like so. And as long as you did it only on one axis, you would then be able to kind of get this mirror effect in. But now there is a bit of an issue, because as soon as we do something like this, and let's say we want to make another roundish shape to it, and we do this and this, for example. Okay, so that's fine. It just doesn't work anymore, because as you can tell, I'm just going to do the same again, and now we could go obviously to the global angle, but that wouldn't help us anyways, because now it's going to rotate, and it's fine. I mean, with the global angle, we would at least be fine and nicely aligned, but as you can tell, the problem now is that we have the thing to the upside and the downside. So, for example, this one is kind of like you build a roof, this one is kind of like you build a boat from the outside. Okay, so it is definitely not the way you want to do this. But if you, for example, do a bit of trickery and you have this piece over here and copy this one around, it just doesn't help, right? However, now you could use this side, because this one is the exact opposite side of the other build. Now, in case, again, as said, it is a bit of a stretch, but if you align that nicely, you can do the trick yourself. Now, we copy this thing, but this time it's important to go to the local angle and you push it over and you rotate this around. And now you basically reconstruct everything you have done over here on the other side. So this is the easiest way to do it, even though it's not the perfect way to go over. But in this specific case, we can still align these things the best way possible. I'm just not going to do all this now, but to get the idea, I think that's enough of a little showcase. I think that's, is that even more? It doesn't even, you know, we have it this way. And see, the problem is also, you could also now do and measure the distance between the pieces. So if I were to do this properly now, I would then go in, use this piece and scale it all the way down. I'm not sure if that's the thing. And now you're gonna push this in. So yeah. And then you want to see, okay, how much does stick out over here? I could actually try to make sure it's exactly the size that this kind of middle thing is aligned. Okay, I'll make it a bit bigger. So that exactly when we align it to the right-hand side, you can see the middle piece over here is exactly the same. So I'm going to push this over, align this thing here, and the middle piece is sticking out a little bit too much. So I'm going to use this then and move it all the way out to here. Okay, so this should be now the exact same distance to both sides. Yeah, no, it's not perfectly aligned though. But now, if you just basically were to connect your pieces and select all the ones you have over here, confirm that, and then you basically duplicate that as well, you were to perfectly put this to the other side. You can see how the idea translates, okay? It's not like 100% perfect right now, but it is slightly off because you would have to just kind of create the correct mirroring effect over here. But with this diagonal wall, you can at least get yourself a bit of a help, you know, and have the correct angles at least in, and then rotate the pieces around the different axes to achieve some better mirrored buildings. It is still a little bit hard because you do it by hand, but with the diagonal wall, at least you can create some sort of that effect. Other than that, I really hope these kind of advanced skills did help you build better in Jurassic World Evolution 3. There's much more to learn, there's much more to see. I hope we get more tools in the future, mirror tools, better scaling, that would be awesome. But for now, I hope these little explanations did help you to understand the system a bit better and hopefully to build more advanced. Thank you so much. And if this was helpful, please hype the video. That seems to help way more than people were thinking about this. But also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That would help me tremendously because a sub on each video is also very much of a big measurement for YouTube. So if you do sub to a video, this video gets recommended more often to more people. So again, that would help me a lot. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you as always in the next one.